What's up guys, Nathan here. At long last, the 3.9 patch notes are out and we can finally start planning our starter builds. As always, I prepared a comprehensive list of the strongest and most reliable options, but first I wanted to make a few comments. Unlike previous League starter lists, I've chosen a specific theme to focus on, and that theme is bossing. There are a few reasons for this. The first is that Conquerors of the Atlas is introducing 5 new endgame bosses, designed to be just as mechanically complex as Shaper or Elder, but with more life and damage. Secondly, the League mechanic itself is literally about creating homebrewed boss encounters. The footage we've seen suggests that more difficult creations will yield better rewards, and at least some of the bosses will be fought in a separate area to prevent snowbally mapping builds from reigning supreme. Lastly, I wanted to bring up the development manifesto. Among other things, GGG discussed how they are buffing monster resistances, life, and armor. The TLDR for these changes is that monsters are going to be tankier, especially when it comes to bosses. Because of all of these factors, today's builds will basically be bossers that can also map at a reasonable pace. Since Atlas progression is tied to killing conquerors and low tier mapping is basically dead, I personally believe that the following builds are some of your best choices going into patch 3.9. Herald of Agony. When it comes to low investment bossing, Herald of Agony is still the king. With literally no gear, nodes on the tree, or empower, a 6-linked level 20 Herald of Agony crawler does around 200k Shaper DPS. And while that number may sound rather low, consider this. With all of those leftover skill points, you can do whatever you want. You can be a Jug with 7 endurance charges and 10,000 life. You can be a CI Tri-Curse Occultist. You can even be a Necromancer and push that 200k DPS up to 1,000,000. The strength of Herald of Agony is its flexibility, so if you have even the slightest desire to create your own build, this skill is a fantastic place to start. Honestly, I hesitate to recommend any specific version of Herald of Agony. Searching for yourself on poebuilds.cc will give you way more options than I can fit into this video. However, if you want something easy and beginner friendly, consider trying out System Player Lost's Guardian variant. This version focuses on using Cyclone to trigger his various summoned minions' effects and is an excellent starting point for anyone interested in the unique world of Herald of Agony builds. Lightning Mines. I know this sounds even less clear than Herald of Agony, but hear me out. This is actually 3 very similar build concepts in one because I think they all share the same excellent level of viability. Arc, Ball Lightning, and Stormblast Mines. Arc Mines was a very strong, top-tier meta build a few leagues ago, but GGG brought down the nerf hammer hard. Since then, the skill has slowly been buffed back into relevance, with 3.9's patch notes finally giving it back some of its old chain range. This, combined with the mine throwing mechanics introduced in 3.8, makes me think this build will be an excellent league starter and early boss killer once again. Stormblast Mines were introduced in 3.8 as the premier early game miner skill, and to no one's surprise, they held up extremely well during the leveling process. So much so that GGG saw fit to nerf this aspect of the skill ever so slightly. However, what did surprise me is that they chose to significantly buff Stormblast Mines' endgame scaling. Due to this, I expect it to be a competitive choice for anyone looking to play Mines. Lastly, I wanted to highlight my personal top pick for Mine starters, Durimon's Ball Lightning Miner. Ball Lightning is a mechanically strong skill with great single target potential, and Mines further improve these qualities while also introducing some clear speed. Durimon's version focuses on being cheap, fast, and dealing stupidly high amounts of damage. If you want to play a miner and can't decide on a skill, you should definitely check this build out. Blade Vortex Chieftain. You won't see this on many other starter lists, but I personally think Blade Vortex Chieftain is an excellent choice for this league. It balances survivability, damage, and affordability into a complete package that's surprisingly smooth to boss and map with. The only catch is you'll need to get dexterity on your gear, as well as level with something like Holy Flame Totem until you can pick up a Blade Vortex in either Act 3 or Act 6. As far as guides go, there aren't a lot of league start friendly ones out there. However, I took the time to put together a sample path of building, as well as included a year-old Mathel video to give you an idea of how the build plays. Newer players might be turned off by the lack of guidance I have to offer here, but I promise this one is definitely worth your consideration. Cold Totems. As usual, there's a lot to love about Totems. They're cheap, easy to play, and deal tons of damage. In fact, this section will barely be touching the tip of the iceberg in terms of discussing all the fantastic totem starters out there, such as Divine Ire, Arc, and Stormburst. However, similarly to Lightning Mines, I wanted to focus on a specific theme via the following skills: Frostbolt, Freezing Pulse, and Ice Spear. Frostbolt Totems is a classic choice that I would highly recommend to new players. While its overall clear speed is a bit lower than Freezing Pulse, its high base damage and off-screening potential makes it just as viable. On the flip side, we have Freezing Pulse, which is arguably the sexier version of Frostbolt. Its damage is a bit lower, but it more than makes up for this with better crit and cast speed. Its damage falloff does require smarter positioning though, so it's a bit more involved to play optimally. Lastly, we have Ice Spear, which more or less sits in between Frostbolt and Freezing Pulse in terms of clear speed, but has way more single target damage than either of them. Sadly, there aren't any great League Start friendly guides available for this build either, but I will be linking Nonstop's forum guide that focuses primarily on endgame stuff, as well as including a more budget path of building that can easily be used for any of these three skills. Melee Skeleton's Necromancer. Minions have always been a tier 1 starter, and honestly, they still are. The movement speed they lost can easily be made up by ring crafts, and level 25 specters are hardly unattainable for your average necro. The only nerfs that really hurt were to zombies, but they'll probably still be great with enough investment. However, as far as starters go, skeletons are looking extremely tempting. They hardly lost any damage, and the Feeding Frenzy buff makes them literally cast dash rather than walking towards enemies, leaving them basically unscathed by the movement speed nerfs. The build I'm going to recommend here is Viper-esque's pure physical Skeleton and Friends Necro. This version of the build focuses on being cheap and tanky, and because skeletons are insane, you'll easily be doing over 1,000,000 DPS with just a tabula. Some of you may be tempted to say Minion League is over, but trust me, they got off easy, and starting with them will still be one of the best decisions you can make for a bossing-oriented meta. And that about does it for my top league starters in patch 3.9. As usual, this is not a comprehensive list of all of the viable league starters, but due to the unpredictable and potentially difficult nature of the league, I had to be picky. If you're more interested in experimental starters, keep an eye out for my video on the topic coming in the next day or two. This has been Nathan, thank you for watching, and good luck in Metamorph.
Thank you!
Hey guys, I just want to thank my awesome Patreon supporters: Real Human, Zikarex, Squally, Zoljan, Coda, Julia, Alan Kepler, Sparky Keta, Fusk, Putzak, Heiser801, Kyle, Logan, welcome to the team, Ice Dude, Ginzink, Anonymous, and Orangina. You guys are great. Thank you for giving me money and keeping me less than hungry. I appreciate it. It's very late. It's like 5 a.m. so I'm just gonna go. But those are other things that are linked to that might be helpful. You can check out my Patreon, my Twitch, and my Discord. That would be cool. Yeah, I'm a little running on empty-ish, so I'm gonna go now. But love you guys. Thank you so much. Good night.